enough how true that quote is. We spent here at Salina probably 2 years of planning prior to go-live. We set up a governance structure for our EHR committee. We turned that governance over to our physicians and let them lead the project and supported them through it. But even the physicians that realized that with all the planning and preparation, we had one shot to get it right. And if we did not get it right on that shot, it was going to be real difficult to get this started again. Once you have that momentum going, it's hard to get it back if you have a bad experience. So that's one thing to keep in mind. All your eggs are in one basket with this, unfortunately. Next slide, please. When we set up our governance structure, we brought in about a dozen physicians that were physician champions in the hospital, those that were very interested in going live with CPOE and with physician documentation. And we brought in a couple physicians into that group that may not have been great proponents of doing it as well, but we needed some to convert along the way and show that it could be done. The governance structure that was put in place was an EHR committee chaired, and all the voting seats were physicians. We also had ancillary departments from the hospital involved as well, but they didn't really have a voting role. They were more of a support role in the committee. That committee was broken into 6 subcommittees of what we call work groups. Those work groups were responsible for the different aspects of the whole project. One was communications, one was training and support, one was workflow and devices. There was a PDOC group, and the other 2 are escaping me at the moment. But 2 physicians from the EHR committee sat on those subcommittees, those work groups, and that's where the real work was done within the whole process, was in those subgroups. I know it's a touchy subject for some, but we decided it was best that we compensated the physicians for their time. We did have legal review what we wanted to do, and their work on the EHR committee as a whole group was not compensated for, but their work in the subgroups and the work groups was compensated for. It was minimal, about 4 hours a month is all we paid them, so it wasn't too bad. And they were fine with getting some kind of compensation out of it. Once we had that committee in place and started moving forward, the date was picked, and you do have to set a date when you're going to go live, and you need a goal to work for it. That date doesn't need to be set in stone to start with. We've moved that date twice, but moving that date, someone on the EHR committee felt was probably a lack of management or failure in management to not meet the specific date. So keep that in mind, that some of your physicians are really determined that this is going to go live once they get started with it. We picked a month to go live in instead of a specific day of the month until we got real close to the date. It was a good thing we did that in February, because we found the first part of February we wanted to go live on the 6th. We found that was going to cause problems with scheduling issues and with one minor update that we still needed to do the Meditech, so we were able to push it off to the 26th. And that was a much easier thing to do when we only told everybody we were going live in February. Make sure that you plan for your go-live training from the beginning. We budgeted for the assistance of American Consultants very early in the process. We budgeted for that in April of 2012, so it would be part of the budgeting, the operational expense when it came around time for that. That's when you want to engage your vendor support early on, make sure they're a part of the process, and they have time to plan the right consultant for you that can fit your organization the best. Develop your curriculum next for your go-live training, and make sure that training is designed by clinicians. We have 5 nurses that work in IT here, and those analysts were the ones that built the system with the physicians from the EHR work groups. Once that curriculum is developed, you need to test it. Make sure you have a test environment that you can do that in, and test it with your EHR physician. Setting up a command center is something that you're going to plan for, although we found with our Go-Live that our command center wasn't utilized that much. But I think we had done a lot of preliminary work, and what we did in a mode really made a difference as far as our Go-Live day, and that it was almost a non-event when we went live. But you need to schedule for 24/7 support. We picked a 2-week time period, and we wanted to make sure we had enough coverage in every unit where physicians would be, especially during the busiest times of the day. That's when you want to have the most people there, but you still want to have somebody there 24/7. There will be hours when people will be there in the early morning, but they won't have anything to do. That's okay. I would rather have somebody there than not in that situation. You also want to make sure that you review the resumes of any at-the-elbow support consultants that you bring in. Place the consultants in the areas certainly don't want an OB nurse down in the ICU. It's a different environment, and you want to make sure they're comfortable where they're at and can help the people and talk the same language that they do on that nursing unit. There's enough variation that it's real important that you do that. I don't think we had but one person move in the 2 weeks that we had him here, so I think we did a pretty good job of lining up the consultants in the right areas. Our Go-Live elbow-to-elbow support team arrived 2 days before we went live, and we trained them on the way that we built the system. They were already familiar with Meditech. They were already familiar with how the EMR Meditech worked, how CPOE worked, and how PDOC worked. We just wanted to make sure that they knew how we had tweaked the system and customized it for us so that they would be able to help the physician when the time came. We went live on a Monday morning. We had consultants here. We had our own staff. We had our staff as far as our support staff. That structure was the at-the-elbow support consultants. We had our 5 analysts out of IT. We also had physicians that were on the EHR committee as part of the Go-Live support team that also roamed the floors as support. We had super users that we trained in each unit. Those were either nurses, charge nurses, or care managers in each of those units that could also help. So we tried to make sure there was enough support and enough help for all of our physicians once we went live. If there was one thing we would have done differently, maybe with our preparatory training, would be that we might have concentrated on nursing a little bit more. I think that's the only area where we saw any kind of difficulty in some aspects of the new processes and the new changes, was that we may not have spent enough time with nurses. But I think all went well anyway with that. Our training process, and this is real critical that you make sure you're training your physicians as close to go live as possible. That's why you want to set your date and keep it if possible. We did our CPOE training. It was mandatory, being that this committee was part of the physician structure and governance. They reported directly to the medical executive committee. So they, by vote, decided that if the physician was going to practice in this organization, they were going to have to be trained. So anybody that was not trained, physician-wise, by Go-Live Day, was going to lose admitting privileges. So we got everybody in. Some just at the wire, but we did get everybody in. We did order entry training. That took approximately 3 hours. We scheduled that during January and during February, so it was as close as possible to go live. We used groups of probably 2 to 5 providers at a time. There were a couple groups that were a little bit larger, but we wanted a smaller group, and we wanted the groups to be of the same specialty as possible, because each specialty had just enough difference in nuance and how they were going to use the system that we thought it was important to train them together so that they would each understand how they were supposed to use the system. We didn't want to train all the physicians how to use the system in every single aspect, areas especially that they would never use. So we tried to tailor the training specific to the physician. One other thing, keep in mind that any software or hardware changes that you make during the go-live process may throw a big wrench in the works. So put a freeze on any software and hardware changes on any system, not just in Meditech, for 1 week prior to go-live and for 2 weeks after go-live, so that there were no interruptions caused by something we were doing in IT that would cause something or cause the wheels to fall off the wagon. So that was our experience. We had a great experience with American Consultants. We did a lot of work up front, and that paid off in the long run. So I would suggest making sure you plan and plan well and stick to your plan, and I think everything will go okay for you.